When I was a teenager, I rebelled against everyone and anything that I can get my hands on. I would steal shoes from stores, makeup from stores. I didn't have anything. I didn't have anyone.
Welcome to Chapter 2 of Amberlynn Reid's childhood. In Chapter 1, Amber and her siblings were taken into foster care after a local newspaper posted an article about her father's violence and arrest. She and her brother Tony spent a few years in foster care. Then when Amber was about 12 years old, the court let them move back in with their parents for a trial period.
During that 6 months, my parents were able to cheat the system, excuse my language. They were still doing drugs, they were still violent with each other, they were still neglecting me and my brother, and it was bad.
The previous chapter covered Amber's life from birth to early adolescence, where she was a helpless victim of her parents' dysfunction. In this chapter, she becomes a teenager and starts being able to make some of her own choices, and we see her replicating her parents' destructive behaviors.
My parents didn't really have many rules for me and my brother when we did live with them for the little bit of time that we did. Their rules were, no cussing and always drink milk with dinner. That was always the rules that they had set in stone for us.
Amber was now in middle school and she was placed in special education classes which are designed to assist learners with disabilities and other learning difficulties.
I went to the same middle school as Winona Ryder. It's cool though. We ain't gotta talk about it. I pretty much know her. I'm just kidding. I went through a lot in school. I was actually in special ed in high school and middle school. It's not something I like to admit, but it's true. When I get taught things, it kind of doesn't absorb in my head like, it would a normal person. I don't know why. I don't know if it's because it really thoroughly just does not interest me, or I don't know.
Things were not entirely bad for Amber. An elementary school teacher had recognized her writing talent.
The first time I ever remember realizing that I am a great writer, it was in 5th grade when we were supposed to write a poem about the moon. And the teacher was going to pick one poem to read out loud, and it was going to be her favorite poem, and she wasn't going to tell anybody who the poem belonged to. And she started reading my poem. Everyone found out it was me because my face was turning bright red and I was really embarrassed. And she talked to me after class saying, wow, your writing is, very mature for your age and stuff like that. And, I appreciated it so much. And ever since then, I'm just like, I don't know, writing has always been my go-to hobby, passion, and everything like that.
When Amber was 15, her parents decided to separate.
Even though my parents were separated, my mom was living down the street with her boyfriend in a different trailer, which was literally 10 feet away. They've been separated since I was 15.
Amber has never shared why her parents separated, but following the breadcrumbs, I think these two incidents were the catalyst for the separation. First, on Ask FM, Amber shared that when she was 14, she found out that her youngest brother James was not her father's son. Christine had cheated and got pregnant. Second, in October 2004, when she was almost 14, Christine was arrested and charged for inflicting bodily injury on a spouse or cohabitant.
The whole time my family was just getting worse and worse. I started smoking marijuana. I turned to the wrong type of people to hang out with. My brother started acting out. I didn't care about school. Things that were happening at home were ruining my education because that's all I thought about. I'd either miss school or I'd just not care. Like, I'd go and I wouldn't do any of the work. School was hard. I remember one time I was actually in 8th grade and I didn't want to actually leave the school, mainly because my friends didn't want to, but I wanted to ditch really bad. So they're like, how about we just stay in the girls' bathroom all day? So we stayed in the girls' bathroom literally all day. From when school started at 8:15 a.m., we were gonna stay all the way until 3:10 p.m. when I got out. We were super successful all day. I don't know how it happened. Besides the last 2 minutes, I started going like this
Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it, do it.
I started doing that and a teacher came in and caught us.
At 14, Amber got suspended from school and George stole a laptop from the suspension hearing.
I had my group of friends, and then there was this other group of friends that like hung out like near there, but like hated us. I don't know. So at the time, for some reason, the group that hated my group, well, I wouldn't say my group, I wasn't like the head honcho or anything, but the group that I hung out with, like my friends and stuff, for some reason they hated me the most and my best friend at the time the most. I don't know why. I remember there was like 10 minutes left of lunch, and when I tell you this is all a blur, I'm like not even kidding. So something was said, that's all I know, and then all of a sudden my best friend at the time and like the main girl of the other group are physically fighting each other. I hear yelling, people start surrounding, then all of a sudden there's hair pulling, I see an earring that fell off, and then a girl's clipped off who was trying to help her friend. I don't know, but not once did I throw a punch. I stood there and watched, I'm not gonna lie. I am not a violent person. I don't hit people. Here comes a teacher, break it up, you know, break it up. We're all in like this circle, so the teacher couldn't really see who was actually fighting. So next thing I know, it was me, my friend who fought, and then the girl who fought, and then like two of her other friends. We were all sitting in the office, and we had to one by one go in the principal's office and say exactly what happened. We had to write it down on this like big piece of paper, exactly what happened. Like, well, long story short, my best friend lied and said that it was me that fought. And the girl who fought my best friend said it was me who fought. I get suspended for fighting when it wasn't me. So not only did we get suspended, we had to go to this like court situation where at the time I was actually living with my parents like for a trial to see if like they were fit to be parents or whatever. So it was me, my dad, he brought his friend, I don't know, they were on like so many drugs, I don't know why he would bring his friend, but okay. And we had to sit around this like table. They called it court, but yet there was like no judge. I will safely say right now, I do not remember what happened at that table at all. I don't remember. My biggest takeaway from the whole thing is that my dad stole a laptop from that building. That's actually a story that I tell my friends all the time, that my dad stole a laptop from a courtroom.
Something good came out of the suspension because Emma got community service to work with the elderly, which she found to be an enriching experience.
I was suspended and had to go through this whole court thing on top of also getting community service. I don't know what the girl ended up doing, but I started working at like this nursing home that was actually across the street from another high school. I would sit with the elderly, I would play bingo, play games with them, just keep them company. And that is when I realized, wow, I honestly really like this type of work. And I think that's why being a PCA worker was so amazing for me. It definitely brought back a lot of memories of community service. I don't know, bonding with the elderly is something that I absolutely love. When I was a teenager, I actually would do a lot of community service just because I would enjoy it. I would volunteer at elderly homes. That was probably my number one thing that I enjoyed the most.
George was now running a full-blown drug business at the family trailer and would frequently outsource childcare to his customers.
Me and my dad lived in the same trailer and I didn't see him for weeks on end. You guys might think I'm exaggerating, I'm lying. Call it what you will, but this was my life. My room was on the one end of the trailer and his was on the other, and like the only time I would see him was when I needed something, which was very rare because he actually paid his friends to take care of me and my brother. How he paid them was through drugs. It's pretty ridiculous. Like when I was in high school, again, living with them, I wouldn't be picked up from school until like 3 hours after school. And the only reason why I was picked up was because of my dad's friends, drug addict friends. My dad would never see us, and it was starting to become really hard because he would have people come in and out of the trailer constantly because he was selling and buying drugs. It was disgusting. Things were getting worse. I was becoming miserable.
Amber said that some of her father's friends would be sexually inappropriate towards her.
when I was 14. My dad had a lot of like men who were on lots of different types of. Sorry, I'm starting to get a little flustered in a bad way. And when I said that they would essay me, when I used the A word, assault, I consider harassment as an assault. When you were harassed by your dad's friends as a teenager, did they ever touch you? So trigger warning, they would like touch my leg, like mess with my hair, like put it behind my ear, touch my arm, brush against me on purpose, things like that. Just very, like as a little girl, like as a teenager, it just made my stomach like turn for sure. When it comes to like sexual harassment, a lot of my dad's friends, yes. But I was never like, from what I remember, I was never sexually or physically touched by my father's friends. No.
Shortly after getting home from foster care, Amber had finally opened up to her mother about the essay that happened when she was 7.
I was 7 years old and I did not tell my mom till I was 12. So it was a 5 years where I had that.
Some people in the community believe that Amber lied about the essay.
You lied about essay. No, I didn't. I was molested by my cousin when I was 7 years old. Oh, me saying it was my dad's friend, 100,000%. I said that for a long time. Yes, I did. Because this cousin lived with me and my parents and my brother. So for a long time when I was younger, like especially my teenage years, I did say it was someone that was not related to me. Yes, I did. This isn't really something I like to share, but I have shared it before, but I do have a lot of new subscribers. But when I was 11, 12, and 13, I actually peed the bed a lot. And that was during my trial time with my parents to see if they were fit to be parents. Long story, but I actually peed the bed a lot and we didn't know why, and I saw tons of therapists. I was seeing counselors. It was kind of mandatory for the situation that I was in, still being ward of the state, which means my parents weren't technically my guardians because I was still in foster care anyways. But I was peeing the bed because I was traumatized to sleep at night.
15 was a busy year for Amber. She tried out meth and she also got offered a plus-size modeling job.
I ate meth one time. In high school, I found my parents' meth and I took a bite. Just a little.
I can say I never did that.
I don't know why. My friend was over and we were just like, oh, let's take a bite of this. Like, I used to be the type of person when I was in high school that would go and look for people. Like, I really wanted to be in a relationship. I was 15 years old, okay? I had a boyfriend, and he wanted me. Oh, my Lord, what is this? I can't even say it. Oh, my God. He wanted me to take a photo of a toothbrush up my vajinky, and I did. What were you doing when you were the most physically intimate with a food item? I've never. Oh, I deep throated a hot dog in high school.
Wait, did you really?
Yeah. It was in high school.
Why?
Like,
and why a hot dog? Were you trying to impress people? Yeah, okay.
I was 15. I was high. I had a crush on this guy. It is what it is.
Right.
I'm sure he remembers it too because he was shook to the core. When I was 15, I was asked to be a plus-size model, but my parents said no.
Then around the same time, she went to a fair and bumped into her old best friend who had had a massive glow up.
So I went on the prowl to find her. I was so excited because, you know, she was my childhood best friend. I was like pumped beyond the gods. And I was like, she's gonna be so excited to see me. People change, okay? People change. She saw me. I saw her. I said, hey. She said, hey. She wanted nothing to do with me. She was hanging out with these other friends. She became the popular girl is what I'm trying to say. She had these gorgeous friends. She grew up to be gorgeous. And I was just there, this depressed, yeah, I was going through a lot when I was 15. So me and her grew up. She was thriving and I was not. I was going through a lot. So that was very hard. I almost wish I would have never seen her that day, you know, because now like that's my last memory of her versus the last memory I could have had of her was like the good times me and her had, you know.
After her parents' separation, Amber's mental health got progressively worse, and one day she confided in a friend that she didn't want to live anymore. The friend showed this text to her mother, and Amber was sent to a mental hospital.
Then my parents got a separation, and that was just mind-boggling to me. I didn't know that would ever happen. I was becoming miserable. How everything started. Right now. I texted my friend. I was in high school and I was texting her, and I said, I wish I was I want to die. I do not want to be here anymore. The next day, I go to school and they call me into the office. I didn't think anything of it. I thought it was because I didn't do my homework, blah, blah, because I literally sucked in class. I didn't do anything, didn't pay attention, didn't do my homework. I didn't care about anything, and it's because of my life at home. So I thought, okay, I'm in trouble again because I didn't do my work, whatever. I did not care. I was probably high at the time because that's all I did was sulk, smoke, drink. That's it. So I went into the office and there was a police officer, and I'm like, okay, this is how it happened before when I got taken away from my parents. So I seriously thought I was getting taken away from my parents again. And I was like, I'm not surprised they're doing blah, blah, blah. But it turned out my friend's mom saw the text message on her phone. And I lied so hard, you guys, you wouldn't even believe it. They're like, are you and I'm like, no, I'm not. I was joking. Then the lady looked down at my arms. I had eraser burns. I had cuts on my wrist. The lady looked down at my wrist. The cop looked down at my wrist. And when I say lady, I think it was the counselor. I'm almost positive. And they're like, you need to come with us. And I'm like, what? So I ended up going. We went to the city away from mine, and it was at a mental hospital. But I think it was for older people because they put me in this room with just one chair. And then this lady came in and she's like, okay, so I'm gonna ask you a bunch of questions. And I'm like, okay, what is happening? And she's like, I called your dad and he's on his way. And I was figuring he was gonna come get me. So she asked me a bunch of questions. I lied about everything. Like, I was trying to seem like the happiest person in the freaking world, but I knew it was coming off as fake as my dad ended up coming in and he's like, okay, I'm here to pick up my daughter, blah, blah, and she's like, no, come and sit in here. So they brought more chairs in, and we were all sitting in the room, and they were asking him about, like, how I act at home, and he literally had no answer. Like, he couldn't even answer. Like, he was high on something. I don't even know. And, my brother was with him, and my brother was trying to answer, and what he was saying was the opposite of what I was saying, and it was just a whole mess. And my dad's like, okay, well, we're gonna go now. And she's like, no, actually, since she is still, because since I was still, like, in foster care, but I was just in the trial with my parents, I was still, like, I was still in the state. Does that make sense? Like, my name was still, like, the state was my guardian. Like, it's hard for me to explain. So my dad didn't really have any regulations or rules on me, and they could take me.
I didn't think I needed it. I wasn't really gonna kill myself. I was just really depressed, and I was in the mental hospital for about 6 days.
Amber's time at the mental hospital gave her a new perspective on life.
But I want to say that those 6 days changed my life because I stopped feeling like I wanted to. I saw people in that mental hospital that were way worse off. I actually left the mental hospital happy, and the whole time I was faking happiness, and I left actually happy. And I saw my mom the day I got out, and she was like in tears, and she was like, oh my god, you seem like a different person. I don't know what it is. I don't know what it was, but being in that mental hospital changes somebody. I can definitely tell you that, even though it was 6 days.
Amber's new outlook would quickly be tested when she found out that she and her brother were going back to foster care. She has never shared what caused their removal from home this time, But connecting the dots, I think this police raid that Amber mentioned in passing may have been the trigger.
Our home is no longer our home. It was raided by cops, and that's a whole other story for a whole other time.
In September 2006, when Amber was 15, just 3 months shy of 16, the local paper reported that at 12:09 in the afternoon, George Reid was arrested for felony drug possession at his home address. The court record comments show that there was a search warrant for George's room and evidence was collected from said room. Then the record also shows additional charges for willful cruelty to a child under 273A bracket B, which is described in the California Penal Code as any person who, under any circumstances or conditions other than those likely to produce great bodily harm or death, willfully causes or permits a child to suffer an unjustifiable physical pain or mental suffering. The child does not need to be injured for a defendant to be charged with a violation of Penal Code 273AB. So long as the child was placed in a situation where the child's health is endangered to an objectively unreasonable level. I cannot say with certainty that this is the reason Amber and her brother were taken away, but given the living conditions she described, it would make sense that the law would consider the home a harmful environment for a child. I need to also note that a year prior, in September 2005, Amber's mother had also been charged with willful cruelty to her child. The trailer was abandoned after the raid, and her dad became homeless.
When I was in high school, I went to the trailer where I used to live, and there was still some stuff laying around, couches, and things were torn apart by the police, and it was just insane. The last few years of my teenage years, my dad was actually homeless, living out of his truck, and I had to sit there and witness it with my own eyes, and I couldn't help him. I was in a foster home at the time, and I couldn't bring him in my foster home, you know?
Back in foster care, Amber was put in a children's shelter.
I haven't washed my face in like years. For a while there, I was hesitant because the reason why I don't wash my face is because when I was in a children's shelter when I was like 15, the doctor there told me, just don't wash your face. And I was like, don't wash my face, huh? Like, I thought that was like bad and gross. And he's like, actually, no. A lot of people don't wash their face. You'd be surprised. And it actually, supposedly, not washing your face has you break out less. I don't think I've gone 30 days with no takeout. I'm going to say since I was 16. And I'm 31 now. The reason why I say 16 is because I was in a children's shelter at the time, and you don't order takeout.
One day, she and her friends ran away from the children's shelter and moved into an abandoned house where they beat up another girl.
When I was 16, I ran away from a children's shelter with like a few of my friends, and we went and stayed at this abandoned house. And I have told the story. This girl gets her virginity taken from my brother, and then it was an hour later, she's literally having sex with my ex-boyfriend.
Oh my god.
So me and my friend said, tomorrow morning we're f***ing her shit up. Okay, please keep in mind I was 16. Like, I'm literally not 16 anymore. Like, that was years ago. 14 years ago. So we were very mean to her physically. And we ended up like taking her shoes. So when she walked outside, like, oh my god, I regret it so bad that I feel like the worst person in the world. But you have to realize I was like smoking a lot of weed then, and I was drinking then. I was like rebelling. I used to steal from Claire's there though. The last time I remember being there is when I ran away from a children's shelter. I was 16. Me and my friends ran away. Time of our lives.
While Amber was breaking out of foster care, her mother was trying to break into places. In December 2007, the Petaluma AC posted this. At 4:42 a.m., Christine Reid and Chris Brown were arrested for attempted burglary on East Washington Street. After running away, Amber eventually returned to the children's shelter. She was allowed visitation with her mother. Christine would sometimes cancel visitation, but when she didn't, she would help Amber dye her hair different colors.
She would cancel visitation, and she never wrote me, never did anything for me.
I used to dye my hair like every other 2 months. I dye it black. Before I started dyeing it black, I used to dye my hair several different colors. I would experiment. My mom would do it for me. We'd just have fun doing it together. Like when I'd visit her because I was in foster care.
Throughout her YouTube career, Amber was always very attached to her long hair, even at times being scared to trim it. This is likely because the long hair was one of the only things that she and her mom could bond over when she was young.
And everyone was like peer pressuring me, like my girlfriend's mom at the time, and like the lady doing my hair, and they're like, oh my god, you look so good with short hair. And I felt like in the moment I was like, fine, just do it, you know. And after she did it, it looked really good. I have lots of pictures actually. And after it was done though, I went to the bathroom and just started crying my eyes out like really, really hard. I mean, that's a big moment, chopping off all your hair. Now I'm just like feeling overwhelmed with my hair because I just have so much, so long, so thick. And I know so many of you are like, cut it, cut it, cut it. And I'm just like, no, I love my long hair. It's something I've had for like since I was in high school. And it originated because I was in foster care, as you guys know, but there was a time where I would get like visitation with my parents once a week. And me and my mom were doing this thing where whose hair can get the longest the quickest. And now both of us, current day, we both have really long hair. It's just like something that we did together, and I think something that we both like enjoy is just having like long hair. Okay, so this is kind of confusing. I came out to my mom twice as a bisexual and then later on as a lesbian, but I have never came out to my dad. So let me explain. So when I came out to my mom as a bisexual, it was actually because she found a note in my pants pocket. She was doing my laundry. I was 15 at the time. I'm pretty sure I was 15. And she had that note for a couple months. In that note, it said that, oh my God, it said that I was in love with this girl. Obviously I wasn't in love. It was like puppy love. I was writing it to my friend and I was just like, you know, I'm in love with so-and-so and she's a girl. How do I tell my parents? My parents are gonna hate me. And my mom found that note and she kept it for months.
And then I brought it up. I found the letter in your pants. You should have seen the look on her face. Oh my God.
And then she tried to make me feel better because at the time she'd never been with a woman. So she was like, oh, don't worry about it. I think women are hot. And I was like, oh my God, Mom. Yeah, it was funny.
Yeah, I was just like, just be true to yourself. You're fine.
And I was like, don't tell Dad, don't tell Dad.
Well, I could see how Amber was scared for her dad to know. So I never said anything.
I would hear my father saying really bad things about gay people. He would say how it was gay black men who created AIDS. He would say horrible names like and just really mean things. And sometimes he would say, thank God my children aren't gay. And it hurt. It really did. And as I grew older and older, I knew for a fact, for sure, I liked girls. How did my dad find out? I honestly don't remember. I think he kind of just knew. I think my mom told him, to be honest. And I never heard him say anything bad about gays. It was strange. It's like he changed, but he didn't even treat me different, which that's what I was afraid of the most, that he would treat me different because I was bisexual. You know, he really didn't think anything bad of it. And I think what helped too is him and my mom ended up separating and he found another girlfriend who was also bisexual. So I think she kind of, you know, taught him that it's not bad to be gay. It's not a bad thing. It's not something you even choose.
During her second stint in foster care, Amber said she bounced around several foster homes, but she has never shared any details of these homes.
This is the suitcase I've been using like since I was 16 years old. I went to Disneyland for the first time. How I found out was my foster parents picked me up from school. I came home and right in the entryway, my brother and I had these big suitcases, new suitcases. I've never even had a suitcase. And there was like a little note on top saying we're going to Disneyland. It was really cute and cheesy, but anyways. My favorite color used to be pink.
Eventually, Amber found herself at the children's shelter, unable to find a foster home.
Couldn't find a foster home. Like, my parents were being horrible parents. Like, it was just like a literal mess. Like, I was a literal mess.
Amber would text random people to chat whenever she felt lonely, and one day she met a girl who became her best friend. I'm not sure if this is the same best friend whose parents later became Amber's foster parents.
When I was a teenager, I'd actually text random numbers from my cell phone just so I could meet like new people. It was ridiculous. But I actually met some really good friends that way. And I was just texting my friend, simply joking, saying I should live with you because she was my best friend at the time. And little did I know, 2 months later, I was living with her. It was absolutely insane. I don't know how it happened. It happened so quickly. And honestly, at the time, I thought this was beginning to a whole new life that I was going to love every minute of.
On Ask FM, when she was asked about the small act of kindness that she would never forget, Amber replied, "My ex-best friend's parents became foster parents for me and my brother years ago. At first, things were great between Amber and her best friend, and then they soured, and Amber became severely depressed and ate herself up to 420 pounds.
All I did was sleep. I just stayed on my bed and watched TV, and I ate and I ate and I ate. Food was my best friend. And I think she noticed, and she didn't like being around me. Neither did my own brother. I was alone. And more than anything, I just wanted somebody, and that somebody turned out to be food again. I have to admit, after being pretty much tortured by her and my brother, I climbed my way up to being 420 pounds. At the age of 16, I was 420 pounds. There was no YouTube. There was no views. There was no money. I gained that weight very quickly because I was depressed, because I binged. No one ever saw it. And it's just, I have random little like flashbacks when I was in one of my last foster homes, and I would steal food all the time, and they would ask me about it and I would lie. But it's just like, who else would have done it? And it's just wild to me. I was so dumb. I got free lunches, but then the foster home I was in, like, she also gave me money for school lunches. So I was having free lunch, and then I also bought another lunch. And I just didn't care what people thought of me, like in the slightest bit. And I'm sure people looked at me and judged me, and I just really didn't care.
A teacher tried to intervene on Amber's escalating weight and paid for her to do Weight Watchers.
I did it again when I was 17, and actually my teacher paid for it for me. One of my high school teachers, I was actually very close to her. We grew close because we really enjoyed reading the same books. I'm a very big reader. I love to read. And Jodi Picoult was like my favorite author and her favorite author. So we got close between that. And, you know, she knew a lot about my past. And again, I was in foster care. She knew why, because my file was in her office, just like every other student had a file in her office. So she knew a lot about me. She wanted to make sure I was okay always. She was just a sweetheart. So the fact that she was willing to pay for me was amazing, and I only went twice.
She had to spend a month out of school because she was hospitalized for an infection that her body could not fight.
Okay, at the time I was in a foster home. I was 16, okay? And back then I was obsessed with MTV. Like, that is what I did. I would go to school, I'd come home and watch MTV. Like, hashtag lame life, okay? So I was sitting there watching the new episode of The Hills, and I was like, you know what? I want some ice cream. So I went and got some ice cream, and that was like when my binge eating and like hardcore overeating was in like full force, and where it just, that's a whole other story all in itself. And the bowl of ice cream that I got was quite big. My foster parents were not home. But my brother was home, my foster sister, and my brother's girlfriend, which was my foster sister's best friend. So they were all hanging out in the kitchen. I was kind of just like chilling by myself. That happened quite frequently, might I say. So I was just, watching The Hills, and I finished my ice cream, and I want to say like 10 minutes later, I started getting like the horrible shivers. Like I was freezing and I was shaking like hardcore. Like my jaw was like, and I was like, so I went in my bedroom and I got my blanket, and that wasn't working. I didn't finish the episode of The Hills. I just went straight into my room. Okay, I went to sleep that night. I slept that whole night. Then I slept that whole day. And then I slept that whole night. And then I woke up that morning. So it was like a day and a half. And everyone knew like I had the flu, so no one was like too worried. They weren't like trying to wake me up or anything. I do remember one point, my brother woke me up and he was just like, sis, are you okay? And I was just like, I'm fine. Like, So when I woke up, my brother was there and he's like, what's going on? You've been sleeping? Like, are you hungry? I was like, no, I'm fine, but my leg really hurts. Like, it really hurts. And he's like, oh, okay, well, let me look. And he's like, ooh, why is it so red? And I was like, I don't know. It's probably just because I've been sleeping and I've been laying on it weird. And that's literally what I thought. And he goes, no, I don't think so. That kind of looks like what our foster dad had. And I'm like, what? And I wasn't sure what he was talking about. So he went and got my foster grandma, which also lived with us. And she came and looked and she's like, ooh, we got to tell so-and-so, which was my foster mom. And they said, you need to go to the hospital. So we went, they run tests, and they said, you have cellulitis. And I was like, what? And how they explained it to me then was it is a infection in the blood. And they're like, do you have any scabs on your feet? Do you have any cuts on your leg? Like, what could have caused this? And I explained to them the only thing that I can remember happening was I stubbed my toe, my big toe, really hard on wood like the day before I got really sick. And they're like, bingo. And I was like, huh? Because I stubbed my toe. I'm like on my bed. Like, what are you doing? And they're like, yeah, that's pretty much what happened. So the issue is anyone at any size could get cellulitis. But the fact that I was gaining weight really rapidly at that age and me stubbing my toe caused like a little chemical reaction to happen. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Don't know. At this point, I don't care. And they put an IV in me. Like, it was like a whole thing. And they said that the IV that I had, they were giving me a stronger, different type of antibiotic. So I was going to feel exceptionally nauseous. But they didn't even want me to eat. Like, they weren't even focused on that in any shape or form. They just wanted me to get better. And after I was in the hospital for a bit, they finally released me to go home, and they're like, you can't go to school. You have to rest for at least 2 weeks. You have to get better. They prescribed me with a different antibiotic, and they said, just keep eating, keep trying to get fluids in, and instead of taking the antibiotic once a day, you need to take it 3 times a day. And I was like, oh my god, because really the antibiotic did make me feel worse, really worse. And every day I slowly got better, and I started to eat more, and I started to drink more. I was sleeping accurately. I was still in a lot of pain. I couldn't go to school. I missed about a month and a half of school. It was scary. It was one of the scariest things ever.
At around this time, at 16, Amber met a romantic partner named Casey online.
We're actually only a year and a half apart. I was 16 when we started dating.
When we started dating, I should say. I was 15 years old. 15 when we met. She's 2 years older than me.
If you have watched part 1 of this series, you know that this relationship would end up haunting most of Amber's YouTube career. Amber says that during the time that she and Casey were in a long-distance relationship, she was seeing other people, and at some point she got engaged.
I did cheat on him when I was 16 because, I was young. It was like a long distance relationship. We hadn't, met in person yet. Like, it didn't seem like real to me. Got proposed to when I was 17. I thought I was in love. I said yes.
At this point, you're probably wondering what happened to Amber's father. Well, she would still visit him from time to time, and during one of these visits, she accidentally saw too much of him.
My dad used to live in a homeless shelter, and I would visit him there all the time. I was 17, 18, and I was visiting my dad, and I was looking through his phone because he let me use his phone a lot because my phone sucked and I preferred his. And like, I would use his phone to go on some chat site called Photo Chatter. Like, that's a whole other story. Like, don't even. And I wanted to look at his pictures. Like, I wanted to see, what does my dad take a picture of? Like, I'm curious. His penis. He takes pictures of his penis. Destiny, stop. It's true. And I clicked out of that so fast, and literally I will never look at someone's photos again. Like, Destiny's, sure, why not? But whenever someone's like, oh, look at this photo on my phone, like, I won't touch their phone just in case I swipe some weird way because people got some naughty stuff on their phone.
It was at this time when Amber was 17 that she got reconnected to her mother's side of the family. Her mother's sister and Tammy reached out to her on MySpace.
This was back when MySpace was a thing, okay? I was probably 16, 17, probably 17. And I get a message from some woman on Facebook. I mean, see, Facebook is a thing. Back in the day on MySpace, sorry. Saying, oh my God, I found you. Oh my God, like, I can't believe this. I love you. Like, this whole long thing. And then I look again and it's like these other girls just like, oh my God, hey, like, I love you. And, I can't believe this. And I hope you get back to me. I'm like, who are these people? Like, what? It was my aunt, which is my mom's sister. And it was two of my cousins. And I was like, oh my God. The people I've been wondering about and dreaming about and like, oh my God, about, like, found me on MySpace. Like, how? Like, I messaged them back so splickety quickly. Like, I was like, oh my God. And after, like, we communicated, like, we exchanged numbers and we started talking. And I was in foster care at the time. And, like, I told my social worker about it. And she's like, oh my God, you need to go visit them. And I'm like, oh, hey, really? I do. Like, and I did when I was 17.
This trip had a bit of a hiccup at the airport due to Amber's weight.
I am going to Oklahoma to meet these people because I've never really met them before. And I was super excited, super anxious. Planes were not my jam. I was scared. I will say when I go to an airport, I like to get there way early just in case there are complications. But this one time, it didn't happen, which is ironic. So me and my brother go through everything we're supposed to. Security, this and that, give them luggage, weigh it out, do that, do this, have our carry-on. And everything is normal, just as per usual, because I have been on planes before and no one's ever stopped me. No one's ever wanted to know my weight. No one's ever wanted me to buy an extra ticket. That's never happened before with me. And so me and my brother are waiting for the plane the plane has arrived, but we're waiting to board the plane. And there's not many people, I'm gonna be honest. This plane was a little bit smaller, and I wanna say maybe 10 other people were waiting for the same plane as me and my brother. So we're waiting, and this lady comes up to me and she said, are you waiting to get on this plane? And I'm like, obviously, girl. And she tells me, well, we need to talk to you for a minute. And I thought I did something wrong. I thought maybe my luggage was too heavy and they didn't realize it until now. I thought any number of things. Like, was I allowed to have the carry-on that I had, which was like just one purse? I didn't know. And my brother followed me because he was like, what is happening? Like, Okay, so I was 18, so at the time my brother's 17. And so we go up to, you guys know how like at the airport, I don't know if you guys have ever, like not everyone's been on planes or in airports, but when you're waiting for your plane, it's like you have this little section, some are bigger, like I said, mine was pretty small, and there's like a little desk pretty much in between each section, and she brought me up to that section where the desk was, and there was another lady there, and the lady's like, so it seems that you have reached, like, I forgot how she worded it. This was years ago. Like, I'm 26 now. This happened when I was 18. She was like, it seems that you've reached, like, a certain limit. I don't know what she was saying. And she was like, you're going to have to buy an extra ticket. And I was like, what? What? What do you mean an extra ticket? I'm going to be honest. I was in foster care at the time, and I didn't buy my ticket. My foster parents didn't buy my ticket. It was actually my social worker paying for me and my brother to do it since we were in foster care. Usually things like that did get paid through the state. So I was like, I ain't got no money to pay for another freaking seat. Let me tell you that one. And I said, is the full plane, like, is it a full plane? And she literally told me no. And I was like, then why do I have to buy an extra seat? Like, this doesn't make sense. Is it because of my luggage? And she was like, no, because you look like you're gonna take up, like, she said it nicely, but I don't remember how she said it. I wish I would remember word for word. I totally wish. But she said pretty much like, I'm gonna take up more than one seat. And I was like, I've been on other planes before. They've never had me do this. This isn't fair. And I started freaking out. I started crying, and I told her like my whole life story in like one sentence. I was like, I'm going to see my family for the first time, and my brother's like, calm down, like legit calm down. But I could not calm down. Like, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed, and I literally thought I was not going to get to see my family. So I ended up calling my foster mom because that was literally my only option, and I was bawling my eyes out, and I was like, they're making me buy another see, I don't understand why, the plane's not even full. So my foster mom's on the other end, and she was like, let me talk to them. So she ended up talking to them, blah, blah. After a good 5 minutes, literally the plane was gonna take off. And if my foster mom didn't buy the ticket right then and there, then I would have been shit out of luck. And it was like $300, non-refundable, because I'm a fat ass. What? Like, I thought that was so weird. Like, if it was a more of a fuller plane, like, I totally get it. But anyways, my foster mom ended up buying the seat. It was so embarrassing. So I'm waddling my way towards the back, because I prefer going in the back of the plane, even though, like, girl, I got some wide hips, like, let me tell you. So, like, getting back there is kind of hard. I have to, like, walk sideways, but whatever. So I ended up getting back there, and already I have to ask for a seatbelt extender, which is already super embarrassing, and I do it very low-key and very quiet. And the lady, the flight attendant, was so sweet because she knew the situation. I didn't even have to tell her. So the seat next to mine, it was the type of plane where it wasn't 3 people that sat together, it was just 2. So the lady put this sign that said seat out of order, seat broken, right next to me, which, by the way, I barely even sat on. Like, low key, high key, whatever. I'm so annoyed thinking about it, even though it happened when I was 18. Like, I wasn't even using that seat at all. But she knew the situation, and the plane I was on was not, like, no one had assigned seating, so anyone could sit wherever. My brother sat in front of me, but she put that paper down, so if, like, someone did come up and say, hey, is the seat taken, like, I didn't have to be like, actually, it's for me. And we stayed for 2 weeks, and it was bliss. We had such a fantastic time, and when I had to leave, I cried like a little baby. Like, I loved it.
She entered her final foster home when she was 16 or 17. The parents in her final home are the ones who convinced her to pull away from her rebellious path and focus on school.
I think that I rebelled because I was going through a lot. I was in foster care again, and so I started smoking weed and I started drinking. I either ditched school or didn't care about school, and then until finally, I was about 16 and a half, 17, I finally got my together, because my last foster home was just like, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to stop, you know, not caring about school, you need to graduate when you're supposed to. They just really beat it into my head that I needed to be different than my parents. Well, I started at least trying to pay a little more attention towards like my last year of high school, and I started understanding math better, and I was actually enjoying it. I actually went to a lot of schools in my lifetime because of foster care, like a lot, and that's probably why I'm not as smart as I could be, because so much information I didn't get to learn, or I learned several things over and over because every school goes at their own pace and does things differently.
Over the years, Amber has mentioned being involved in a number of activities in high school. I don't know if all of them were after she decided to straighten out.
This random newspaper, Destiny and I found this at the store, and it's the Dear Abby. It was just laying on like some table, and I'm obsessed with the Dear Abby. If you guys don't know what that is, it's like an advice column. And if you guys don't know, I was actually Dear Abby in high school for a year, and only a few people knew it was me because my English teacher literally said, don't tell anyone it's you, but you know how you are. You tell your good friends like things. When I was in high school, I was in chorus, and we would sing our songs in different languages, and for some reason I remember one of the songs that we would do, because we did it a lot like during our chorus concerts, but I don't remember what language it was. So I'm not gonna sing it, but I'm gonna say it. And I wanna know if any of you know what language this is. I tried Googling it and can't find it. So it goes, Viumbe vyote va hum gawait tu not mfambe wait tu pazeni sohudi and Benny. I mean, there's more to it, but my first job ever, which I have been asked this a lot of times actually, my first job ever was working with 2nd and 3rd graders at a Boys and Girls Club. I did that when I was in high school. Right after high school, I would walk to the elementary school and I would do that. So it's really weird. I either get along really well with young kids or like elderly, because I also was a PCA worker at one point. I honestly got along with everybody in high school. Random fact, I was actually nominated as friendliest or / nicest in high school. It was me and this other girl. Unfortunately, I was runner up, but the fact that I was even nominated says a lot about what people thought of me. I will never forget the time. There was this one talent show for my high school, and I was in it, obviously. I choreographed the dance. One of my friends was in it with me, and she had a lot of friends. I didn't really have that many friends at that time of my life, and I remember when we got on stage, everybody was rooting for my friends. I heard them from the audience. It was kind of embarrassing. And I knew right then that I was about to mess up. I was like so embarrassed that nobody was really rooting for me, and I just kind of felt horrible. But after the dance, all I heard was my name. Like, a lot of people were rooting for me, and I was like, oh my god. And my parents actually ended up showing up, so they saw me do the dance. And afterwards, my mom and dad kept telling me how they kept hearing my name after the dance, and they actually heard someone say how surprised they were of how well of a dancer I was. And it just, you know, it meant a lot to hear that.
Hey girls! Looks like we are starting the day off today with some tea coming from Reddit. It looks like someone contacted the mods of this subreddit and asked to remain anonymous, but here's what they had to say. I just felt I needed to speak on this because the lies and bragging she was saying is ridiculous. I honestly haven't thought about Amber in decades, but for some reason a video called Dancerlyn came up and I immediately recognized her, so I clicked and watched it. I'm mind blown over what she said, and I'm so confused because she was never a dancer, at least for Space. Let's get some facts out of the way. 1. Space was not a dance group but a company and education center located in Ukiah, California. 2. Amber was never on an official team, and the only reason we interacted was because she was involved with volunteering and would come to our competitions and pass out water and cheer for us from the side. 3. If you haven't guessed, she never choreographed.
I choreographed
any dances for my group or Space, and she sure didn't win us any competitions. 4. Space was very supportive of foster kids and underprivileged children and would invite them to be a part of dance groups. I remember Amber so well because when Tracy, who was our dance instructor at the time, tried to include her and get her to join groups, Amber would often throw tantrums and sit on the sidelines crying.
Emma finally graduated high school from San Antonio, and her high school counselor bought her a graduation outfit.
How old were you when you graduated high school? I was 18. What's the moment you felt most proud of yourself? Honestly, probably either when I graduated high school, because I was the first person in my family ever, like I can't even say in generations, no, like ever, to graduate high school. And now since me, there has been several others to do so. So I'm very, very happy about that. So just graduating high school. I know for a lot of people that's so easy. That's a breeze. Not where I come from. Not where I come from. So I was very, very proud of that.
At the end of 2008, Emma turned 18 and aged out of foster care. This is her memory of her final foster home.
This is the last foster family I was in. And, you know, there's been some rough times and there's been some amazing times. But like I've said in the past, like they helped me more than anyone ever helped me up until I met Crystal and her family. Just kind, caring people who I adore. And then one of the last times I talked to her, she said, you know, I love you like you're my own child. And sometimes I put a wall up and I'm just afraid to get hurt. Like my parents hurt me. So it's like, what makes me think that anyone else is like immune to hurting me, if that makes sense.
When Emma left foster care, she lost her health insurance, which covered her depression medication, and for the first time in her life, she was extremely worried about not being guaranteed a roof over her head. At this point, Amber's mother had moved to Oklahoma, and in 2009, Amber decided to move to Oklahoma to share a room with her mother at Aunt Tammy's house.
And I honestly thought that once I turn 18, I'd, you know, venture off and get out of foster care and my life would be better. I'm not sure exactly what I was thinking per se, but I was in foster care my whole life, so I was really used to being under like strict conditions. I always knew I had a roof over my head, food in my mouth, just people to take care of me whether we got along or not. I just always knew I had that security. And I turned 18 and I really wanted to be with my mother who was in Oklahoma. So I did everything to be with the family that I thought that I wanted to be with. And so I moved from California to Oklahoma, and I moved without my brother, which was freaking traumatizing.
When Amber left California, it would be the last time that she saw her father, but her mother would continue to destabilize her life in a new state. The next and final chapter will cover Amber's life in Oklahoma and her YouTube feud with Aunt Tammy.
My aunt has completely stopped talking to me. In December, she blocked me on Facebook. She blocked me on her cell phone, blocked my number completely. I have no way of getting a hold of her whatsoever.